Hello everyone, we are Group 1 and today we'll be presenting our final project, Project 5B, the formal proposal on the Children's Center. This presentation will be going over our final proposed volunteer retention tools as well as our plans to implement them, and also our survey results and what we plan to do once the course is completed. The team is qualified to speak on behalf of this content because all of us have attended 2 tours at the Children's Center, one at the Autism Building and one at the main building, and we all have our own experiences mentoring the youth. And we all have just a natural passion for trying to help the Children's Center. So just to give a little forecast of the presentation, after this I'll be introducing the team, talking about the purpose of the project, the conclusion, and the references. And Sarah will be going over the topic description and background information, and core values and vision, what volunteers do, our research methods that we implemented, and the surveys. And then Lauren will be discussing the original ideas already being implemented, the survey results, and the volunteer retention solutions, the recognition activities and events, training, and the importance of the project going forward. And then she'll pass it on to Hussein, who will talk about the schedule of the project, the team contributions, the team communication collaboration, and all the contact information from the Children's Center as well as the team. So, my name is Luke Gonzalez. I'm a chemical engineering student at Wayne State, and this is Sarah and Lauren, who are also chemical engineering students at Wayne State. And over on the end, we have Hussein, who has a bachelor's degree in arts from Wayne State University. And in this presentation, we want to put more emphasis on the fact that John Carolyn, the Children's Center volunteer supervisor, is just as much of a member of our team as the rest of us. We asked him, and he sent us this picture personally. John is the man on the left with 2 other volunteers during one of the volunteer recognition events. And we just wanted to take this time to give credit where credit's due. John has been an incredible help with the development of our plan proposal. He's been in constant communication, has been very helpful, and we just wanted to take the time to mention that he is also a member of our team. So the purpose of the project boils down to a couple objectives and goals. One, firstly off, being to provide research to an organization that has limited resources, as well as help the Children's Center grow as an organization, and develop a sense of pride and accomplishment once the project is complete. And our goals would be to implement an additional interactive training to the training program, increase the number of recognition events and awards where possible, and provide tools that will assist with future volunteer retention. And I'm going to pass it off to Sarah.
So to give a background on the organization, the Children's Center provides clinical services to children who struggle with different challenges such as behavioral, mental, emotional, or developmental challenges, or for children who may have experienced trauma. The Children's Center provides guided diagnosis and treatment for the children to help them overcome their different traumas and struggles. They also provide foster care and adoption for the children who are currently not in an ideal home situation. There's an autism center within them that children with autism can work one-on-one with a behavioral technician on their everyday activities as well as their academics such as reading, writing, math, and sciences. Children and families do have to apply to get into the Autism Center, and it is currently waitlisted due to the very high demand. So the Children's Center has very strong core values and a vision for what they would like to see the Children's Center be. Their 5 values are can-do attitude, they're dedicated, passionate, accountable, and respectful. They try to keep a positive mindset, believing that they can help every child that walks into the door. Their staff and their volunteers are very dedicated and passionate to helping every child. They feel accountable to ensure that the children leave in a better state than when they entered. And then they try to be respectful of the different backgrounds that the children will have walking into the organization. As far as vision goes, they do want to treat the whole child, meaning that they don't want to treat them on just that single issue, but also beyond that, and that's part of the reason why they help with academics at the organization. They want to provide a safe environment, which one way that they do that is through volunteer background checks. They help the children shape their own futures, meaning that this one trauma or challenge will not define how that child is going to grow. And then they want to attract, develop, and retain volunteers with those same 5 core values that they have. So the volunteers are a very big part of the program. They help with the different enrichment activities, such as planning the birthday parties, the holiday parties, the game nights, the art program. They help the children with their homework. They'll also sort through the clothes in the clothing boutique, and they'll only keep the clothes that are in the best condition, meaning no rips and no stains. And then there is a library within the organization where they will help the children find the book that they need. They'll help them check it out, and they'll also read to the children. As far as research methods go, we did dive into the 2 research methods that were talked about in the book, and that's primary and secondary. And secondary typically occurs first, and that is finding information that other people have already created or discovered, where primary research is creating or discovering technical information yourself. Some ways to conduct primary research is through field research, interviews, questionnaires, calculations, and observations. Anything with a thumbs up next to it is ways that we conducted those research methods. So for field research, we went on 2 tours of the organization, one of the main building and one of the Autism Center. For interviews, we interviewed the volunteer representative and he gave us feedback on our needs assessment. We created surveys or questionnaires for the volunteers to fill out, and then we were able to observe the volunteers doing the different enrichment activities during our tours. For secondary research, some ways to conduct that would be online research, periodical or newspaper indexes, discussion boards, or blogs. And then we actually just mostly utilized online research, and that's looking up different ideas for volunteer retention. But we did find that primary research gave us a lot of our focus. So as we mentioned, we created surveys for the volunteers to fill out. There was 10 multiple choice questions ranging from a scale of extremely satisfied to extremely dissatisfied. We asked them questions such as if they felt that they were making an impact on the organization, if they felt that they were being appreciated, if they found the training to be useful, and then how many days per week were they actually volunteering. We also asked them to fill out 2 free response questions where they could make comments and suggestions of what would make the experience better for them, and then if they had any issues with volunteering. We also broke them up into 2 groups between new volunteers and old volunteers to get a variety of feedback on the surveys. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Lauren.
Okay, so when we originally had a meeting with John Carolyn, we decided to show him the needs assessment that we had already created in order to explain to him the different solutions we were coming up with that could potentially be implemented. After this, we also wanted to show him the surveys that Sarah had mentioned because we wanted to see if all the questions were what he thought would be successful and things that he thinks would be good to look for. Now what happened was after he saw our needs assessment, he decided to go into a deep and a very long explanation of the different areas that he's already implementing new strategies, and he wanted to make sure that he did this with us because he didn't want us to try to put work towards trying to solve solutions and try to implement ideas that are already being implemented. So some of those would include questions and surveys to understand the volunteers, optimizing strengths and skills, volunteer management software, and keeping in touch with the volunteers. All of these elements have been incorporated by John as he's currently implementing more interviews for the volunteers and training sessions for just kind of seeing if the volunteers are suitable for the position that they want, to see where they would like to work, and to see if what would be a more suitable area for them in terms of their background and their skills. So he also implemented a new strategy where when a volunteer does start at the Children's Center, in the first month he will do a placement call, and that call kind of asks them, hey, where would you like to work? What would you like to do, and why do you feel like this would be important for you in the Children's Center? And that way he understands them more, and it's a more personal experience. After the second month, he has handwritten thank you letters that are sent to the volunteers to show that they're being appreciated and show that they really do care about the work that the volunteers are putting forward. And then during the third month, there's a third placement call where they ask, how is it going? Are you enjoying your experience? Would you like to go in a different area, work somewhere new? And that way the volunteers do have a choice every 3 months to decide, is this something I'm enjoying, or is there somewhere else I'd like to experience the whole atmosphere and kind of like help the children, because that way it gains a possibility of them wanting to stay longer if they can change almost every 3 months, or if they really love what they're doing. So what happened was, after we learned all this, we realized that with the results from our survey, which I will now mention, we had to refine some of the questions. And those questions were likely to recommend volunteering in the future, dedicated to staying a volunteer, do they feel appreciated within the program, have the training sessions been helpful, do the volunteers feel impactful, and then how often are they attending volunteering and how often are they volunteering. So after reading all of these results, we did compare them between past volunteers and current volunteers, but because all the volunteers are currently working with the new system that John has implemented, they've all had very, very similar results in the surveys. So we ranged these results from being kind of like the lowest of the responses to the best responses. Attendance was at the bottom. The volunteers would only attend they all said basically 0 to 1 sessions every week. So regardless of any of the other points, even if they're satisfied with their experience, this is still not enough that they could still be lacking volunteers in certain areas. After that, they didn't feel like they were having much of an impact. So what we were thinking with that is that because they don't feel impactful, they're not fully understanding the role that they have within the Children's Center. Now the next one is that they feel that the training sessions are somewhat helpful, but perhaps the lacking of the training sessions is why they don't feel impactful. Because if their training is enhanced, that will cause a more rewarding feeling, and they'll feel like they're really making a difference for the children. Next is feeling appreciated. It was higher than training sessions, but it wasn't much different from the results. So the volunteers do feel appreciated. It was always feel appreciated or neutral answers, but that's something that we would like to be higher answers and almost in tandem with dedication and recommendations. So that's something that we also would like to increase. On the top, our two best results were dedicated to staying and likely to recommend. However, one aspect that's worth mentioning is that likely to recommend was higher than dedicated to staying. And that is exactly where the issue of volunteer retention sits. Because of the fact that people are more likely to tell others that to come volunteer other than just staying, that's why they're having a problem having the volunteers continue and commit their time. So our goal is to have dedication to staying be the top and likely to recommend be right underneath. So that is exactly what has led us to our new solutions that we'd like to implement, which we will talk about in the next portion of this presentation, so stay tuned.